Hey, in this video, I'd like to talk about the tech I want to learn in 2023. And I wrote some notes for this video, and exactly 4 bullet points came out of that. And those are the 4 technologies that I specifically want to get into in 2023. Now, that list is, of course, not exclusive. Like, there's going to be a lot of different tech that you interact with as a developer on a daily basis, whether that be, something like an npm package or npx or whatever it might be. But these are the 4 main topics that I would like to get into in 2023. And the first one is AWS. Why is it AWS? Like, that's nothing new, right? That's been around since 2006. But the thing is, I've never worked with AWS before. And I think it bears a lot of potential for really good projects because it is A, very, very scalable, and B, very, very fast. Especially like the S3, right? We got into Amazon like AWS S3 for our booking system where we host the images. And it's very cheap, it's very scalable. It's a very cool combination if there wasn't the user experience or the developer experience associated with AWS. Because honestly, it's not that good, right? I think we can all agree, or everybody who's worked with AWS before, the documentation is not great. There are some security concepts that you really need to get used to. For example, the pre-signed URLs. But AWS in general, I want to get into because it's very scalable, it's very fast, and storage is way cheaper. If you compare it to something like an online SQL database such as PlanetScale, which we've often worked with, or CockroachDB, they often have like a 5 GB limit. And in the case of, say, Wordful, the company or startup that we're building, the documents that you can write, something like a Word document just online pretty much, if you don't know what I'm talking about, they can be really long, and then therefore they can take up a lot of space on the database. And if you host them on AWS, it's way cheaper to just link those two between the database and AWS instead of just putting it all inside of the database and then running out of your free tier, which is like 5 GB often, and really, really fast because the documents can be huge. On an AWS, it's just way cheaper. So that's the main reason I want to get into AWS. And now the second one is going to be NextAuth. Now, NextAuth, nothing new either. However, I think because I've done so much authentication in the past week or two, I'm just going absolutely insane, slowly but surely just bothering with JSON Web Tokens a lot of the time. And I also did a bunch of videos on it, and it's fun. Authentication is cool and it's really, really important. However, there are services such as NextAuth that make it so much easier, and you do not need to worry about it as a developer. You don't need to implement authentication from scratch. There's really no need to do that. They do it for you in a really good and secure way. And they make it very easy to get providers such as Google or GitHub so you can log in with those. And doing that yourself can take really long. I wouldn't even know how to do that. I'd have to Google that. Like, NextAuth just makes that really easy. And there's so much to this library to explore, such as the callbacks or how to generate JWT or the storage the session persistence in the database that you can explore. It's just such a broad topic that I think it's worth getting into. Just because authentication is so important, NextAuth gives you a lot of options to handle that however you want. And that's the main reason I want to get into NextAuth. Now, the third one is going to be ChatGPT. And you probably know what ChatGPT is at this point. I've used it for like about a month now. I don't think it came out much sooner than that. I've used it about since it was released. And it's so helpful in so many situations, right? Especially as a developer, but also in other topics, right? If you want to create, say, a landing page for a freelance client that you have, you can generate some dummy content that is not lorem ipsum, that actually sounds quite decent with ChatGPT completely for free, because it's in beta, right? It doesn't cost you anything to generate that. I've used it to answer, to ask questions to, development topics or other topics that I had, and it could answer those. Now, ChatGPT is not perfect by any means. It can generate answers that are complete bogus. But besides that, especially for development as well, it can be really useful. You can give it code. If it's like a syntax error, that's no problem at all. But that probably won't be the case. More like logic errors, but it can also handle those in many languages. So no matter if you're developing in Python or in JavaScript, TypeScript, whatever it might be, ChatGPT is here to help, and I think learning to interact with ChatGPT in an effective way, how to ask the right questions, is very important for also getting the right answer. Because sometimes the answer is really bad, but oftentimes where I had that, then I noticed, okay, the question is very not imprecise, like not precise at all. And that's why I got that bad answer. So I really think it's worth spending some time on getting to know how to form ChatGPT prompts so you can ask the right questions and then off of that generate the right answers that bring you along in your development process. And now the last technology I want to get into is tRPC. Now, I mean, you probably know, if you're following me for a bit, you know that I'm already working in tRPC almost all of the time. I don't really bother with normal Next.js API routes anymore because tRPC makes it so much more enjoyable. However, I've got to admit, I kind of depend on Create T3 app for that, especially for the setup process of tRPC, because setting up tRPC is something that is not fun and that you do not want to do. Now, tRPC is mainly used for Next.js, right? You can also use it for other projects where the setup is not done for you. And Create T3 app, if you don't know, it's kind of a stack setup that's very opinionated, but essentially it sets up the whole project for you. It installs tRPC, sets up the boilerplate code that you normally have to do yourself, which is really horrendous because it's like 3 or 4 different files that you all have to manage and then integrate into your Next.js app. And it's just a huge dumpster fire if you're trying to implement tRPC yourself. And that's why I want to get into, understanding tRPC better. Which properties can you pass? How can you define custom headers, which I've recently done a video on. There's a lot to cover and there's a lot to understand, especially in the setup process, because just using tRPC is cool. But I think there's a very clear benefit to also actually understanding the technology behind it. Now, not every detail, because you really don't need to worry about that. But understanding the core concepts of tRPC are very different than knowing how to use it, which I do. I do know how to use it, and chances are you might do too if you watch 1 or 2 of my videos. It's not that hard to use, and it's really convenient to use. Just understanding the whole setup process, how it works under the hood, it's really difficult and it's kind of hidden away. So you don't really get confronted with it if you're just using it. And that's why I kind of wanted to get into how does it work under the hood. Now, not every detail, as I said, but just getting a better general understanding of tRPC, because I predict tRPC is going to be very big in the future. Like the type safety it gives you between back and front end is huge. It's like the glue between your front and back end. So there's no more type guessing if you're using just an Express server and the React front end, just, logging out the types and then maybe even typing that out in TypeScript on the front end and the back end and then sharing that. That's also possible, but tRPC makes it way easier to maintain, but is also a way harder roadblock to get over if you want to actually set it up yourself. And that's the reason why I want to get into that. So those are the 4 technologies I want to get into: ChatGPT, tRPC, NextAuth, and AWS. I think knowing all of those, like not in and out, but knowing them to a good degree, like being able to work with them reliably, will really benefit your developer workflow or my developer workflow, and just all of our developer workflows, I guess. Knowing how to use those tools effectively will allow you to create a really scalable with AWS web app with good content with ChatGPT. It will make it easier to fix bugs with ChatGPT and also tRPC because you've got the type safety. And NextAuth will, handle the whole authentication and authorization aspect of the app. And I think that's going to be huge for building really modern and good and scalable web applications. And that's pretty much it. That's all I want to learn for 2023. Now, obviously, that is not an exclusive list. I'm very much open to different technology to use, but that's the main focus. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. I'd be really interested in what you're trying to learn, so feel free to share it below, which technologies you want to get into in 2023. And until then, that's all I want to share. Thank you for watching. Have a good one, and bye-bye.